You know how yesterday I pointed out that ripping Brock Purdy is good for business. And then suddenly today, it went all the way up the sports media food chain. This person doesn't need attention, so this is maybe not what his intent is. But as you know, I promise we're not getting mad about it anymore. I just think the whole thing is funny. But you want to know who today's Brock Purdy hater of the day is?
Who?
Should be an award that we hand out. His name is Shannon Sharpe.
No, he's not an elite quarterback. He's a product of the system. It's more credit to Kyle Shanahan and what he's done. He's not, in RC, you'll appreciate this. In the biblical term, the devil told God that Job, the reason why he serves you is because you give everything to him. He said if you remove that hedge from around him, he will curse his very maker.
He'll curse you.
He said you can take everything but his life. Took his kid, took his sheep, took all that. Job was still faithful.
Never cursed him.
I'm not so sure that if we remove Debo, we remove Kyle Shanahan, we remove Ayuk, we would still see this Brock Purdy. He's a product of the system. Now, that's not to take away from what he's doing. It's okay for him to be in the MVP discussion and not be Patrick Mahomes or not be Tua or not be an elite quarterback. He still has to go out there and operate. He just doesn't have to do as much as, say, those other guys. If I were to put him in Patrick Mahomes, if I switch places and says, okay, you got to go do what Patrick Mahomes does, or you got to go do what one of these other quarterbacks, I'm not so sure Brock Purdy could do that. But in this system, the ability to run the football with Christian McCaffrey and all the weapons, because all he has to do is just not turn it over. Get it in the Ayuk's hand, get it in Debo's hands, get it in Kittle's hands, and let them do the work. But no, he's not elite. No stretch of the imagination is he elite.
Oh, I'm stretching my imagination.
Yeah.
That's Shannon Sharpe first take. And it's a cold take. It's a bad take for 3 reasons. Number 1, you don't sound smart when you say he's not as good as Patrick Mahomes.
Number 1.
That's not a hot take. That's an obvious take. Who the hell said he can do what Patrick Mahomes does? Who the hell can do what Patrick Mahomes does?
Nobody.
Who does that?
Right?
You could argue that nobody ever can do what Patrick Mahomes does. So who said that? That's not a smart take. That does not make you cool if you're like, I got something for you. Brock Purdy's not as good as Patrick Mahomes. Awesome. All right. So that's number 1.
Okay.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Thank you, Grandy. To say, if I take away Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, and the coach, what would be left?
Christian McCaffrey. 39 carries a game.
Is the Bonte Hill stupidest question ever? Because that's true about anybody.
Right.
Stupidest question ever.
What are we doing if we take away the rest of the team? What's left? Nothing. Nothing. That's true for everybody ever. You can't have all of the other good players on the team and ask him to be good. By the way, Patrick Mahomes would also not be good if you took away all of the good players around him.
Who's the best quarterback in the NFL without good players around him?
Oh, God.
I mean, I don't want you to search team by team. The answer is maybe C.J. Stroud. I don't know. I don't know how many teams you could look at that are good, have only a good quarterback and no good players around him. So that's foolish.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
The whole thing. Now, here's the one, though, that I thought was really maybe worth discussing. And maybe we could play part of it again, Grandy, and just play it until he gets to the point where he mentions the name Tua Tagovailoa. Listen again, and I got a question for y'all.
No, he's not an elite quarterback. He's a product of the system. It's more credit to Kyle Shanahan and what he's done. He's not, in RC, you'll appreciate this. In the biblical term, the devil told God that Job, the reason why he serves you is because you give everything to him. He said if you remove that hedge from around him, he will curse his very maker.
He'll curse you.
He said you can take everything but his life. Took his kid, took his sheep, took all that. Job was still faithful.
Never cursed him.
I'm not so sure that if we remove Debo, we remove Kyle Shanahan, we remove Ayuk, we would still see this Brock Purdy. He's a product of the system. Now, that's not to take away from what he's doing.
Yes,
it's okay for him to be in the MVP discussion and not be Patrick Mahomes or not be Tua.
Stop it right there.
It's okay, Mark, for him to still be in the MVP conversation if you take those guys away.
Thanks.
It's okay.
I'm so glad you have given permission to Brock Purdy to be in the MVP.
And when he refers to the book of Job, you have no response. Shout out the Old Testament. Book of Job.
Wasn't that like the password or whatever in Mission Impossible? What was the whole Job thing? Remember there was a Job thing in Mission Impossible. Somebody clue me in on the YouTube feed. But anyway.
I know that Job was a character in Arrested Development.
Okay. I didn't watch that show.
Oh, it's a great one.
I know.
It's worth a rematch.
When I'm 85,
I'll add it to your list of shows that you missed.
Thank you.
I'd put that about 8th on your list of shows you missed.
Oh, okay. I have 432 of them. So slot that one in the
Breaking Bad, The Wire, and
none of them.
Better Call Saul, The Sopranos.
Sure, throw them all
Game
in
of
there.
Thrones.
Same.
Then maybe I'd get to a comedy like Arrested Development.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, sure.
Help me with this,
Okay.
everybody. 888-957-9570. Dibs, what do you think? I'm sorry. What is the difference between Brock Purdy and Tua?
Well, one's righty, one's a lefty.
Good answer.
One was really good and successful in college. The other one wasn't.
No, it's not that Brock Purdy wasn't, but I hear what you're saying.
He was all right. He won
good.
the Alamo Bowl, and he won the Blue Bonnet Bowl.
He was good in an Iowa State sort of a way. Not in an Alabama.
7-5 year in and year out,
No,
basically.
but that's like if you want to say Brock Purdy's not Patrick Mahomes, like I said, the answer, well, of course he's not. But then you started to go on a list. You said, now, he doesn't do what some of these other QBs do. He doesn't do what Patrick does. He doesn't do what Tua does. Excuse me? What is it that Tua does that Brock Purdy doesn't do? I'm pretty sure that what you just said, a product of the system, Tua's in the exact same system, literally being coached by a Kyle Shanahan disciple, and has the fastest receiving core in the history of the National Football League. And if you did take Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane away from Tua, what do you got? And again, I think it's a dumb question, but he's the one asking it. He's the one who said, if you take all the good 49ers away, what do you got left? Well, you'd have a bad football team, which is true also for the Dolphins and the Chiefs and the Bills and anyone else. But I found it fascinating, Dibs, that he put Tua's name in there. What does Tua do that Brock doesn't? What is that?
Not much. Well, Tua wins, and so does Brock at a higher rate. Tua throws for more yards, but he throws more passes. Quarterback rating, Brock is better. Yards per attempt, I think that Brock is better. And all the metrics that you want to line up, those two are normally 1 and 2 on the list, and yet Brock has won more games than Tua, and he's won 10 in a row as a starter in the regular season. So I don't know what he does, what Tua does that Brock doesn't do. There really isn't anything when you look at it in terms of just the stats or even the eye test. It's not like Tua's going back there and throwing 50-yard bombs and, throwing it against a 7-man pass rush and standing in there and making the tough throw. They're both having very similar years.
Yeah. Oh, except for you forgot. There is one thing that Tua does that Brock doesn't.
Throw picks.
Throws interceptions.
Yeah, I knew it. I jumped the queue.
There's 5 of them.
Yeah.
5 of them. 5 of them in 5 games. 1 a game. Brock throws none a game. Am I missing something here? Like, that was just I know that wasn't even Shannon's main point. His main point is one that's been made many times before.
Brock's a system guy.
And we debunk it on the daily around here, and so that's fine. But the name Tua being the one that he picked to throw in there alongside Patrick really caught my attention, because I do think there are quarterbacks who do things that Brock doesn't or doesn't have to do. Jalen Hurts does different things. Josh Allen does different things. Patrick Mahomes does different things. I even think someone like Trevor Lawrence is asked to do some different things athletically than what Brock does. But Tua Tagovailoa, you're going to separate him in some sort of way and say more is asked of him than Brock Purdy when the numbers, as you stated, all match up?
Right.
Completion percentage for Tua, 71.7. How about for Brock Purdy? 72.1. You're right on the yardage, but as you also stated, they throw a lot more.
Right.
It's more about yards per attempt. Tua 9.7, Brock 9.3, 1 and 2 in the league. Touchdown passes 11-9. Quarterback rating, Brock is 1, Tua is 2. Kyle Shanahan's system, weapons running around like fireflies all over the field. What's the difference?
Mike McDaniel's system, fireflies running around like weapons all over the field.
What's the difference?
There's almost no difference.
So you're crediting Tua for being that kind of dude, and he's not a product of the system, but Brock is. Draftism.
It's more than that, but yes,
Draftism.
it's also East Coast bias because Tua plays on the East Coast, and Brock plays out here on the West Coast, and Kyle Shanahan's quarterback, because he was drafted where he was drafted, is always going to be disparaged more so than Tua will be.